not necessarily the police state, that'll remain, right? All right, to one degree or another, but they'll let the pandemic back off a little bit. They'll let the people kind of get this sense of relief, and then that'll build trust in the government and a lot of people. And then when they do the next one, the people won't even resist because they'll know the drill, and then they'll go like 100%, like crazy apocalypse level. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a time now, I think, where people are gonna have to choose, um, make hard choices, you know?
Freedom or death.
Yeah, something like that. Like, how much longer, for instance, is this internet gig gonna last, like, for us, like this, talking freely? Like, is this one of the last times? Because I mean, they want to lock everything down. I mean, this is a big problem, having people just talking and stuff on the internet. They can't have that.
I've been talking about this forever, man. I said from the beginning that it's this whole internet and sharing this information, that it's a small window of time that we're gonna have. I kind of like felt this back in '06, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think they did it too to kind of draw us in, like a honeypot, and get us like addicted to this stuff, and then we lose all our real bonds and relationships with people. Like, instead of being outside and doing real things with real people, everyone's on a little device now, and now they're forced to, really, a lot of
Right.
people.
And also a lot of like 40-60% of this whole social media technique has been used to lead us astray even more, with people like Alex Jones and all these different people, man, that are supposedly telling us what's going on, but really leading us further astray and just getting us more panicked and scared.
Yeah, yeah, man.
So where do you think we're headed, man?
uh I don't know, my take on it. I'm kind of thinking that this is just like the tip of the iceberg right now. I mean, they're gonna drop a big war sometime soon, World War III, you could call it. That's gonna be a draft. There's gonna be a huge protest to that, and I don't know anyone who wants to go fight in World War III. Do you?
No, man.
Yeah. So that won't go by well. And then I was looking at all the, what do you call them, the emergency legislation that America has on the books, for, they call it continuity of government. So if there's a national disaster, what happens, like what they're authorized to do legally according to themselves. And basically that's what's happening now, is the president declared a national emergency, and that process has now started of basically handing over the country to a military kind of style governance. We've seen the Constitution clearly suspended, even though it was hardly, in in
Exercised.
it was
Right.
hardly exercised before, but it was still kind of this thing that people talked about like it was real. But at this point, it's really out the window.
So
Um,
do you think right now that we are transitioning from the drill phase into real stuff, or do you think that right away it was like this is not a drill, like we are definitely walking into some new waters, man?
yeah, I mean, this is like Nazi stuff now, without a doubt. I mean, you can't go outside, you can't do this, you can't do that. You show us your papers, or else, right? And in some places it's less enforced, in some places it's more enforced. But at the end of the day, that's what's going on, you know.
I,
Um,
I was
but I,
telling, uh-huh,
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's okay.
I was telling my wife that a lot of people, again, being being stuck to like the news and everything. They're not seeing what's actually going on. In a lot of countries in Africa right now, the military is literally out on the streets scaring people into their houses with guns, with real bullets, man.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I remember even in Ebola, there was some craziness going on in, oh man, I forget which state it was. I think it was, I mean, I could say in Africa, but that's pretty vague.
Right,
But yeah,
right.
during the Ebola scare, like, there was, I forget where it was, but maybe Zambia or something.
Zambia, yeah.
I'm not sure. But anyway, it was crazy. Like they were just throwing people in trucks at gunpoint because of some rumors that someone might have had Ebola, and craziness. But yeah, I mean,
So,
I think.
so do you? Okay, so basically, again, two questions. First question: do you think that there is an actual virus, and if there is it man-made?
See, I think one of the things here is that everyone is assuming there's one disease going around and there's one cause to everything, and it's this virus. And I would contend that there's a whole lot of different things going on here. Like, I think when in Wuhan in China initially, what was going on there is totally different than what's going on in other parts of the world, but they're all just calling it the same thing. They're calling it corona. But it's like, okay, for instance, in Wuhan, you have one of the most polluted places in the world already. You already had outbreaks and plagues of pneumonia that were reported in last year before the craze began, just regular pneumonia, and that was a problem. People were protesting that. And in China, protesting something is pretty dangerous, so
Right.
it must have been quite a problem, this pneumonia and this pollution. So there was that already there. And then on top of that, it became one of the testing beds for the 5G network, the first places that went live. And so the question is now like, okay, how much did those factors create this so-called disease? Because what if they just took a bunch of people with pneumonia and said, oh, this is a new plague, we have to lock down the city, and it was just some lie they made up, and then on top of that, they switched on some 5G systems, killed a few people, they had some dramatic videos of it. Oh yeah, look at that, it's a new disease, look at this video.
So are you saying that 5G is not causing coronavirus?
I think it could have played a part in Wuhan, is what I'm saying. I don't know, but I mean, other places, it's not really online in most of the world, so.
I've been seeing towers for a while now.
Yeah, 5G, I know there's some in New York, I don't know where, but over here, I haven't seen any. I haven't heard of any here. I know they're not really up in a lot of other countries in the States, though. Donald Trump, he just signed a fast-tracking program to get 5G up as quickly as possible. So it's going to be highly advanced there, and I think that's a potential. What I was thinking is that they might let this pandemic kind of quote-unquote go away, and they'll say, oh, see, everything's better now. The government saved the day. Yeah, the quarantine worked, and the people will, clap and cheer, and it'll be like a training for the real event. And like everyone will be familiar with the drill, like, so if, for instance, here's a scenario I was thinking about. If they set up this 5G system, and I've been looking at it a lot, and it's dangerous. It's a weapons system. It's a potential weapons system, right? So it can do all these strange things to you. Let's say they switch this on in America, and this 5G radiation ends up giving people weird diseases, and they call this a new, disease X, some great new disease, and people actually die this time. Like, you see your neighbor die. It's not just some news story and you don't know if it's true. Like, you see people dying, you know what I mean? And it looks like a real plague to your own eyes. And then the government will step in and say, oh, look, you remember the drill, folks, right? And then they'll do another lockdown, and this time they'll just put the boot down, like, hard, you know. That'll be it. And then they'll start World War III. Then they'll do a draft, and you know, people are not going to be in any state to resist a draft. They're already in a Great Depression. There's 5G systems. People are dying everywhere. They start a draft at that point, there won't be much resistance.
So this is what I was asking you before. So you do think that this is right now is a drill, and we're not yet into the whole change, if you will, full force, or are we already gradually coming into a whole new world?
I think my opinion is, like, at this point, I could see it going either way. Like, I think it's almost like they're gauging our reaction as a public, and they might even just put the boot down right now if they see that we're totally, like, just on our bellies. Like, they might just go for it all the way. I think that, you know what I mean?
Which is happening, man.
Yeah, and I totally think that is happening. I agree with you. And but I think at the same time, they might let off the pandemic story, not necessarily the police state. That'll remain, right? All right, to one degree or another, but they'll let the pandemic back off a little bit. They'll let the people kind of get this sense of relief, and then that'll build trust in the government and a lot of people. And then when they do the next one, the people won't even resist because they'll know the drill. And then they'll go like 100%, you know, like crazy apocalypse level, you know.
I interrupted you before, but basically you were saying, so in China they had this whole 5G testing. So are you saying that the Western world kind of seen this as an idea to do what they did now, and then, you know, start lying about the numbers and doing this whole kind of thing? Or, you know, were they in on it with China all along?
Yeah, I think they were. I think it was just the tests. China was a test, and then they kind of they put out a trial balloon, and they saw how it went, and they said, oh, let's try another city, and they tried a bit of it in Italy, and they said, oh, that went really well. And I think they just, at that point, they were like, all right, let's just go for it. Let's try to do the whole world and see if we can lock the whole thing down, you know. That's kind of how I think. You know, I think, like, they have plans, but they have plan A's and plan B's depending on how people react, you know what I mean? What do you think?
Right. That's great. I wanted to ask you, how is all of this connected to the book of Revelation?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I think, like, you know, basically, from my point of view, America's fall is, like, foretold in Revelation 17.
Yeah, you
and 18.
talked about this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're getting into that right now. Like, it's because you read in that chapter, you know, assuming I'm right and it's talking about America, which I believe it is, it talks about how all the judgments, you know, famine, war, plague, economic disaster, it all kind of happens all at once. It happens really quickly in 1 hour, so to speak, as it's written there, right? So I think, like, we're in this, it's happening now. Like, it's the beginning of that hurricane of different factors that are gonna basically cause the collapse of this empire. This empire's at it, I think it's pretty clear to most people. I think this empire is kind of at its last legs now.
So are
You know
we
what I mean?
witnessing the four horsemen story right now?
Yeah, you know, I can say, at least from my point of view, you know, I'm open to other people's ideas on it, but when I read about the pale horse, especially, whose name was Death, right? I find that one particular very interesting, because the word pale, it means actually in the Greek, the original language, it means like pale green. It doesn't really mean white horse. It means like pale green, from what I understand. And you notice that this whole push of eugenics, all of this, in the background, it's got this sustainability motive or agenda, and to be green, being green, that sort of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Of course.
It seems like the people are a disease, and they have to cleanse the earth of us, so nature can be relieved of its great burden by mankind, that we're putting on it. And it's like that is almost the pretext for genociding the whole world right now, is like environmental sustainability, like fake environmentalism.
Okay, but are we from to come back to the physical plane, from the biblical to the physical, from the standpoint of the powers that be, are we running out of natural resources?
Oh, I have no idea. I think they're probably lying about that. They're probably lying about all of it. Why wouldn't they? I mean, for instance, they say the Earth is overpopulated and there's not enough space.
That's the dumbest thing ever, man.
Yeah, like I don't think there's any evidence for that. From what I did, like the math that I did, you could fit every single person on Earth in Anchorage, Alaska, and we would still have, like, I don't know, you'd still have like a 2-level house and quite a bit of land around you. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, that was it.
I made a video about this where I didn't get into the mathematics, but I said very simply, to all of us that live in crowded and overpopulated areas, how about you get in your car, and it doesn't matter if you're in America, drive across America and see how empty it is. Go to Russia, right, the biggest country in the world. When you leave Moscow, when you start heading towards Siberia, you will be in no man's land forever. Same thing with Australia, same thing with Brazil. Anywhere you go, Canada, come on, the second biggest country in the world with a population of like 30 million or whatever, man. Empty. Like where are we overpopulated? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's like that in itself. I mean, that's the greatest resource. They say that there's not enough land resource, right?
Okay, but the reason why I said are we running out of natural resources is because the powers that be, the enemy, because this was one of the theories that they're basically saying, look, we have exhausted the natural resources of this planet. We're not going to have enough for us, let alone the slaves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hence why this is all going on.
Yeah.
So, but you don't think that natural resources have anything to do with it. So basically you're saying take total control, right? And take any kind of civil liberties that we thought we might have had, strip those away. So what happens? Are we moving into a what do you call it? Like one of those books and movies, I forget.
Oh yeah, like science fiction.
Yeah, well, are we basically moving into, a slave world kind of society?
Dystopian, man? Right? Dystopian.
Right.
Yeah. Why do you? I mean, it's like, why do they put out these stories and themes like of this dark future that, you know what I mean? How many movies and books have they written about like this dark sci-fi future already, right? Why are they putting that idea out there constantly and kind of washing our minds with this idea if it's not in their plans, but it is in their plans, because you read their documents, like these social engineer types that are in these families, and that in England especially, like, they wrote in English, and you can read it yourself, about what they think about us, what their plans are for us. Like Huxley wrote Brave New World, right? And he was part of the Huxley family, and he wrote that book because that's the sort of stuff that his family was interested in, was building that sort of future. There's so much evidence that that's what they actually intend to do, and it's happening, right?
But are we also witnessing some sort of population cut?
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, like that's in that's in their own writings, that's what they intend to do with us, and that they're going to use, in Bertrand Russell's words, he said, diet, injections, and injunctions are going to be the methods they will use to control the people. So diet, food, injections, drugs, vaccines, and the injunctions, so laws, oppressive laws. And in their own, from the horse's mouth, right?